Is CNS fatigue real? It's about as real as adrenal fatigue and low testosterone. So, technically, I'll say that CNS fatigue technically is real. And there's studies on this, and it lasts about 20 minutes at most. So, yeah, you're not suffering from CNS fatigue if you're overtraining. Um, your brain is amazing. It's the most important thing in your whole body, really, if you think about it. And so your body is kind of dependent on taking care of your brain first and foremost. And so, whenever you have this CNS fatigue, your body makes it a priority to produce the neurotransmitters and replenish them. So, does CNS fatigue exist? In a technical sense, sure. Like, if we're going to be really, like, pedantic and, like, technical about this, yes, but it's not what you think it is. Kind of like adrenal fatigue. Very quickly, if you think you have adrenal fatigue, you need to see an endocrinologist immediately and get a cosentropin stimulation test, where they're going to give you an infusion of a synthetic ACTH, and then they're going to measure your blood levels to see whether or not you're producing cortisol. Okay? So, if you have adrenal fatigue, then you're suffering from primary or secondary. Well, Addison's is actually an autoimmune condition. So that's a primary adrenal insufficiency because it means that the adrenal fatigue is caused by, and I'm only saying the word adrenal fatigue because that's the word, but it means that the adrenals aren't producing cortisol because the adrenals themselves are damaged. If you have secondary adrenal insufficiency, it means that your pituitary gland isn't producing enough ACTH to send a signal to the adrenal gland. So, this is very serious, and if this goes untreated, you die. So, you don't have adrenal fatigue. You don't need to go buy a whole bunch of supplements from somebody selling ashwagandha and, I don't know, holy basil or something. You don't need to go buy a bunch of B vitamins either. You're not suffering from adrenal fatigue. If you had adrenal insufficiency, you actually need to be placed on hydrocortisone, and you would need to have they make an injectable called Solucortef, which I happen to have one. I have to carry it with me, and I have to make sure that that's with me at all times. So, if you have adrenal glands that don't work, then you have to take hydrocortisone, and you have to carry around a vial of injectable hydrocortisone with you. So, coming back around to CNS fatigue, if you had CNS fatigue, you would be in deep shit because it means that your brain doesn't have adequate amounts of neurotransmitters like serotonin and things like that for it to function. This can happen in a short term and it won't kill you, but just like how having low cortisol in a very short term won't kill you. But if this lasted for any prolonged amount of time, you would find yourself in a world of hurt. So, no, CNS fatigue does not exist. You guys can look this up. In fact, I think Menno Henselman, Bayesian bodybuilding or something like that, has an article on this where he does a great job of actually citing the studies. And you can go read the studies for yourself. If CNS fatigue does exist, it's very short term, like 20 minutes max, and your body is back to producing adequate levels of neurotransmitters. If someone tries to tell you that CNS fatigue is a real thing, they're bullshitting you and probably trying to sell you some supplement or some solution that they always happen to have the solution, don't they? Just like adrenal fatigue. Oh, adrenal fatigue, yes, I just happen to have the solution to that. It can't ever be a situation where, like, oh, you have adrenal fatigue, you should go see a qualified medical provider. No. You have CNS fatigue, you need to go see a neurologist. No one ever says that. It's like, you have CNS fatigue, buy the supplement that I happen to sell. You have adrenal fatigue, you need to buy this supplement that I just so happen to sell. Which is like the whole low testosterone thing, right? Everyone's out there telling you, you have low testosterone, make sure you come to RTRT clinic. Wait, what? Why wouldn't I go see an endocrinologist? Why wouldn't I see an actual doctor? What if something's wrong with me? What if you like low testosterone? You mean like primary hypogonadism? What if it's secondary hypogonadism? What if there's a pituitary tumor? What if you have a prolactinoma or a pituitary adenoma that's crushing your pituitary gland? You could die from apoplexy. Oh no, no. Come to our TRT clinic. We'll sell you stuff that we make. It's just like some of these people out there with their companies, and they tell you, oh yeah, I had a pituitary tumor that almost killed me. Buy my supplements. I'm sorry, you can't cure a prolactinoma or an adenoma with supplements. I don't give a shit what you take, and no, you can't cure it with a ketogenic diet either. You can't just like, oh, I have a prolactinoma, I'm going to go to a ketogenic diet and take some cuniperians. It doesn't work that way. You should be very skeptical of people who happen to sell you the solution to these things. Which I realize now I've covered 3 different topics, and I really just wanted to talk about CNS fatigue, but I'm trying to point out to you that much like these other fake conditions, CNS fatigue is basically a made-up condition. I mean, technically it exists, like yes it does, but not the way that people are talking about it. Similar to how like Addison's disease is a real disease, and primary adrenal insufficiency as well as secondary adrenal insufficiency are real things. That's not adrenal fatigue. And similarly, primary hypogonadism, secondary hypogonadism, and tertiary hypogonadism are real things. That's not the same as what people are talking about with this low T thing. Like, if you have tertiary or secondary hypogonadism, like, you really do need to get like some serious medical intervention. That you could have a brain tumor or something. Like, there could be something far more important than your testosterone level. And similarly, if you have primary, like, maybe you want to make sure you don't have testicular cancer or something. Like, maybe you have microlithiases in your testicles. Maybe you have a varicocele, in which case you actually need to have surgery to have that removed. Maybe you have nutcracker syndrome, which is basically your mesenteric artery is pushing into your left renal vein, which causes a retroaortic left renal vein. This then causes the varicocele, which is basically like a varicose vein, downstream, which then causes your testicle to overheat, and now your testicle doesn't produce sperm or testosterone. So, like, there's some truth in these things, just like there's some truth in CNS fatigue. But if these conditions were really what people were talking about, you would need to go see a doctor. Like, you would need medical intervention. You're not going to fix Addison's disease by taking this B5 vitamin along with some ashwagandha that I happen to sell, any more than you're going to fix, oh, you can fix your CNS fatigue. Take this alpha GPC that I happen to sell. Like, it just doesn't work that way, folks. So there's a lot of people out there that are just completely full of shit, and they're trying to sell you supplements. So yeah, CNS fatigue, as it's being described by people in the fitness and exercise physiology, whatever, like sport fitness, most of these people don't even have a PhD or anything. Most of them are just personal trainers. At most they have a CSCS. You can ignore them. They have no idea what they're talking about, or if they do, they're just flat out lying so they can sell supplements or sell some solution that they always happen to have the solution. But long and skinny on this, is that technically it does exist in a very acute state immediately following exertion, but that's not something that you're really suffering from. If you have overtraining syndrome, you have overtraining syndrome. You don't have CNS fatigue.